I hope you're doing well and that you're having a good 2020 so far. Or rather, as good as it can be, considering that this has been a bit of an unfortunate year, but hopefully it's not too bad for you and you're staying healthy and safe. And now we are going to get into my 2020 bullet journal setup, which, yes, I am doing in June, but I've only been bullet journaling for a few months, so I didn't want to set up for 2020. Also, I couldn't find the time, which is kind of a lame excuse, but I was moving. Maybe that makes it a little bit less lame. And moving during the pandemic was a little bit problematic, as you might guess. In any case, I'm starting off the first page of my bullet journaling notebook with a bunch of scrapbooking paper pieces that I just had lying around, and I thought that they would work well together. And I'm actually really happy with how they turned out. Now, to make this whole scrap pieces of paper situation a little bit more interesting, I decided to add a little bit of washi tape with this forest theme. It's actually one of my favorite tapes just because I really like forests, and I thought that it worked really well with the rest of the colors in this spread. It kind of matches them pretty well. But that wasn't enough, and I also wanted to add something to the top right corner, which just felt really empty to me. So I went with a little floral sticker that doesn't perfectly match the colors in the rest of the spread, but I think it still works pretty well, and in fact it adds a little bit of contrast, and it still has a little bit of that greenish tone in the center of the florals, so it does match the spread to some extent. This next spread is definitely the most simple out of all of the spreads I'm going to show you in this video, but I pretty much put this together on the computer and printed it out. And my original idea for this spread was that I would then paste this graphic into my notebook after I ripped off the edges to make it a little bit more scrapbooky, and then I would add something to make the spread more interesting. I was thinking I might add a little bit of silver paint, or maybe a little bit of glitter, stickers, just about anything. But having stared at it for a while just on my page, I realized that I actually really like the simple look, and I didn't really want to add anything after all, so here you go. So this next spread is my calendar spread for the year, and maybe this is a little bit redundant considering half of the year is already gone, but I wanted to add all of the months for completion purposes, and just because it would have bothered me just to have 6 of them. To be perfectly honest, I was actually going to cut out every single calendar and paste them in separately. Some of them might have been at a little bit of an angle, but as I was cutting out all of them together, I acquired a case of acute laziness and decided that that would be overkill and I could just make it work as one big block of calendars. And now that I had my big block of calendars glued in, I needed to make it prettier. And of course, whenever I need to make something prettier, I reach for my trusty washi tape. And maybe a few stickers here and there, but washi tape actually worked perfectly for this particular spread, just because the calendars are very geometric in their layout, and washi tape is, well, geometric. Plus, I had some really skinny washi tapes that I don't really use very often, but I thought it would be perfect here to fill in some of the smaller spaces in between the calendars. And you can see that I started off with this wide washi tape with dragonflies in this like purple and turquoise tone, and that pretty much determined the colors that I would be using for the rest of my spread, because the washi tape just took up a lot of space and I thought I would just match those colors to everything else. And the purple is pretty much represented with some purple thin washi tape strips and some vaguely purplish leafy stickers that you will see in a second. And the rest of the elements in the spread are pretty much just turquoise and blue. And to make things just a little bit more interesting, I layered my washi tape and put it at various different angles. Also, in case you're wondering, I did speed up this portion of the video more than I did the others, just because it took me a surprisingly long amount of time to actually put the spread together, and I didn't think that it warranted that much real estate in this setup video. This next spread is my goals and dreams spread, and I definitely wanted to put both of those in, just because I thought that it would be really helpful for me to actually write down my goals for the year and, well, think about my goals for the year, even though it's only going to be half a year right now, but still, I thought that it would help. And the same for my dreams. I'm not a very positive person, and this is something that I definitely struggle with, so I thought that actually putting down the things that I wish would happen, things that I wish I could have, would actually help, because maybe some of them are not as far off as I might think, and maybe some of them might actually come true, and who knows, maybe I'll look back at this spread and realize that some of the things that I thought were practically impossible actually became a reality. You know, at least that's the dream. And to match the dream and goals theme of this spread, I decided to go with a sort of moon, star, space theme. And I started that theme with this lined piece of paper with some moons at the top, because, well, it matches the dream theme. And of course, I wanted to add something a little bit extra at the bottom right corner, just because things felt a little bit plain. And I went with a purple flower sticker, because it matches the purple colors in the paper. As for the other side of the spread, I went with a piece of paper from the same set actually, and you can see that by the matching colors, and it's a sort of constellation themed piece of scrapbooking paper, and I ripped it off because I really like the scrapbooky feel, and I went with a few pieces of starry washi tape that I use in so many of my spreads, just because I think that they're neutral enough to go with everything, because, well, black and gold are neutral enough colors, and yet they're sparkly and make every spread look a little bit more interesting and a little bit brighter. And of course it makes it sparkle, which is always a benefit in my book. And my final touch for the spread was a little bit of bluish purple iridescent paint over the headings, just to make them a little bit more interesting and to add a little bit of extra sparkle to the spread. And following the theme of the previous spread, I also added a spread for my 5-year goals and my 10-year goals. And it's been quite a while since I've actually written down or even really thought about what exactly I want to happen in the next 5 years and 10 years. Well, it's been even longer. So I thought that this spread would actually be really helpful for me to figure out how I want my life to go, what direction I want my life to go in. And that should be really helpful for me to figure out what kind of things I might need to start doing now in order to actually achieve some of these goals, which, well, would be great. As for the actual spread, I added a little piece of paper that says Dare to Dream on the right. That's actually from the same theme as a bunch of the papers I used in the previous spread. And I wanted to add that in as a reminder for myself when I would be filling out this spread to actually dream and to think about some bigger goals that I might want to achieve, because 10 years is a long time, and it is probably enough time to actually be able to achieve some of the bigger goals that I might not even let myself consider. And on the left, I added a little piece of paper with some prompts for my 5-year goals, just to help me fill some of them out and to help me think of things that I might want to do in the next 5 years. And of course, I had to use my favorite starry moon washi tape. And of course, it actually brought some gold into my spread, which is a good thing as far as I'm concerned, and I decided to match that gold with a gold floral sticker and by filling in the headings with a gold marker. That last bit is actually something that I won't be repeating, because for whatever reason I can spend several hours on one bullet journaling spread, but filling in a heading with marker drives me crazy. The next spread is actually yet another spread that I hope will make me focus on the positive things in life rather than the negative. And it's going to be my favorite monthly memories spread. Now, I didn't leave myself a lot of space in this spread just because I'm not sure if I want to fill it in with an entire year's worth of favorite monthly memories or just the remaining half a year. I'm not even sure I can remember my favorite memories from earlier in the year, to be honest, but it might actually be a good exercise to do. In any case, I figured that even if I ran out of space in this particular spread, I could always make another one at the end of my journal. As for how I actually put together this spread, I had this piece of scrapbooking paper that says memories on it, and I thought that that just fit so perfectly with the spread, so I decided why not make it part of my heading. Since the rest of that heading is actually black and white, so I thought that it would make things a little bit more interesting. To finish off the spread, I matched the navy tones in my heading with a piece of navy purplish toned scrapbooking paper on the right, and the black and white floral sticker to make things a little bit more interesting. This next spread is going to be my books read spread for the year. And spoiler alert, I'm actually going to add another spread for my books right after this one, just because I don't have the most dainty small handwriting, and when I counted how many books I can actually put on this particular spread, I think it's going to be around 20, I realized that I've already read more books than this, and that I will definitely need another spread. So here we go, my first part of the books read for the year spread. Now, I knew right away that I wanted to use this piece of scrapbooking paper that looks like a library card for this particular spread, just because it fits the theme so perfectly. But just by itself it looked a little bit plain, so I added a piece of black scrapbooking paper underneath to make things a little bit more interesting, and my remaining piece from the same piece of paper I added to the bottom right corner, just to make things more cohesive and because I knew that I would want something in that corner anyways. In that particular corner, I also added a yellow flower sticker just to add a little bit more color to the spread because I wanted to keep most of it fairly neutral, but I thought that the yellow flower was actually neutral enough to work well while brightening up the spread just a little bit. I also added a little bit of brick-themed scrapbooking paper to match the brown tones in the library card, and a few pieces of castle and card-themed washi tape just because they felt vintagey and I thought that they went with the rest of the theme. Of course, we also can't have a spread without my favorite gold, starry, and moon-themed washi tape. If you're getting sick of it, by the way, I think this is the last spread in this video that I'm using it for, so there's hope yet, stick with me. And now, as promised, the second spread for my books of the year, or rather the books I read this year. And when I say read, a lot of the time I actually mean listened to as an audiobook. Don't get me wrong, I love to read physical books, it's an amazing feeling to just curl up somewhere and read a good book, but I don't have the time to read a lot of physical books anymore. So at this point, audiobooks are pretty much the only reason that I get through as many books as I do. And you can read audiobooks, or rather listen to audiobooks, while you're on the bus, while you're doing chores, while you're taking a walk, or my personal favorite, before bed as you're trying to fall asleep. Because for me personally, an audiobook really helps me to shut down my brain, otherwise my thoughts just go crazy and keep me up until the morning. Don't get me wrong, sometimes that still happens, even with an audiobook, but it's a lot less likely. So if you have trouble falling asleep like I do, then I definitely recommend trying audiobooks. Alright, so now that we've gone through this very long side note, I hope you're still with me by the way, let's get back to the actual spread. Now, because I liked how it looked so much in the previous spread, I'm using two more pieces of these library card looking pieces of paper. And I think that they work really well in this spread too. But this time I decided to go with more colorful versions, which is basically this dark mauve color and this dark green color. And since this was actually my starting point, I decided to match the rest of the spread to these particular colors. My next step was to add a pink piece of tissue paper and to use that to write my heading in green, again to match the colors of the spread. And then I added a few fantasy-themed pieces of washi tape because, well, my favorite genre to read is actually fantasy, so I figured that they went with the idea, and the colors sort of match. There's some pink and some green in both of the pieces of washi tape. I also added a few pieces of my forest green washi, again to match the colors. And my final touch for the spread was actually going to be a few splatters in this copper sparkly paint, but I later figured out that that was a fail because the paint was too thick, so I ended up just painting it in a few places just to add a little bit of extra sparkle to the spread. And we have reached the final spread in this video, which is good because I'm actually really hungry and this voiceover has already taken me quite a few hours. In any case, I wanted to make the last spread of this setup my reflect and review spread. And I definitely wanted to add a reflect and review spread because, well, I added all of these spreads for goals, favorite monthly memories, books read, things like that. And I definitely wanted to read over all of that and analyze to see whether or not I have accomplished these goals, what kind of books I've been reading, what kind of progress I'm making generally. So this is definitely a good spread to keep in my bullet journal. And if you're interested in tracking your progress as well, this is definitely a spread that I would recommend, even though I've never actually filled in one of these spreads. Well, only for the month, but not for a full year, so we'll see how useful it is afterwards. As for the spread itself, I actually started with this little quilt in the bottom right corner, just because it felt really appropriate to a review spread. And to that I actually added this cutout photo that I had printed at my local photo center. I had quite a few of these printed just because I don't have a colored printer, and I wanted to add some extra color to my spread, and this seemed like a good way to do it. So here it is, the first time I'm actually using one of these, and I really liked it. By the way, if this is actually something that you're struggling with as well, then this is a great way to get around not having a colored printer, if you like a sort of scrapbooking feel bullet journal. Moving on, I actually used some peachy orangey toned tissue paper to add even more color to the spread, and I especially like the portion where I put it over the heading because you can still read it, but it adds a layering element to the spread that it didn't have before, but that I actually really like the look of. The final touch shouldn't be a surprise because by now you know that I like sparkly things and gold, so the final touch was in fact a gold floral sticker, just to add in those elements that I am so fond of, and to make the spread a little bit more interesting. And since that was the last spread, the only thing that's left to do is a flip through of all of the spreads. So here they all are. And I'd like to end this video by saying that I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you found it useful. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video. Be you, always. Bye!